Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Andrea. It's nice to have you guys here. Today I have a PhD related video. I'm just looking down at my phone with my notes. I've got a ton of notes for today's video. This is a video that I have been wanting to film for a little while now. For those of you who are new or who just haven't been paying attention the last few years, a year ago, just like a year and 2 weeks ago now, a year and 1 week, I graduated with my PhD and finished a several year long journey through grad school. So in addition to my PhD, I also have 2 master's degrees, and those were separated by 3 years. My PhD is in English with an emphasis in writing, rhetoric, and literacies. If you want to know more about my research, I've done other videos. You can go back in my channel and find my defense video and other videos talking about my comp exam and all of that fun stuff. So for today's video, I wanted to talk about the mistakes that I made during my PhD and the things that I'm glad I did and would recommend other people do. So this is meant to kind of help you hopefully learn from my mistakes and not repeat my mistakes. Obviously, I don't know that I would really go back and change anything. I don't really have any regrets from my PhD, but there are some things that obviously you can't go back in time, so I can't go back and do things differently, but if I can spare someone else from going through some of the stuff that I went through with my PhD, some of this also applies to master's programs, grad school in general. So let's dive into it. I've already been waffling for 3 minutes. We're gonna start with the mistakes and end with the good. So I wish I hadn't over-prioritized my teaching. I'm glad that I took time to connect with my students and that I took teaching seriously, but particularly in my 3rd year, which was the first year that my program, you do 2 years of coursework, a 3rd year that is supposed to be going through all of your exams, so preparing and then completing all of your exams, and then ideally 2 years of writing your dissertation. That's not how I did it. I did my 2 years of coursework. I wasted a year and did not really make any progress. Then my 4th year was scrambling to get through my exams, and then my 5th year was frantically writing my dissertation, because at my university or in my program, we're only allowed 5 years of funding with the TA-ship. After that, they're not going to kick you out of the program, but they're also not going to pay you. And the TA-ship was not only the stipend, it was also the tuition waiver and the health insurance. So at the end of your 5 years, you lose all of that and have to find some other way of paying your tuition and finding health insurance, as well as some kind of income to live off of. It put a lot of pressure on me in that last year. So I wish that I hadn't prioritized my teaching, especially in that 3rd year, above my research. It was just so easy to focus more on teaching because there were weekly deadlines with that, whereas that 1st year after coursework was done, there were no deadlines. There was no one saying this or that was due by this or that date the way there had been during coursework. I wish that I had been a little bit more strict about putting my research and my exams and all of that stuff ahead of the teaching. I also wish that I had created a more detailed timeline from the beginning. I think it's important to build in flexibility, but have a rough idea of the major deadlines and milestones. Again, I wasted a whole year. So I wish I'd been more strict with what should have been done by a certain time during that year and stuck to that. I wish that I had communicated at those deadlines, some kind of timeline to my committee so that they could have helped keep me more accountable. I was grateful that there was so much autonomy in my program and that my advisor wasn't breathing down my neck, but I do wish that I had created something to keep myself more accountable and shared that with her so that she could have helped me. Mistake number 3, I wish that I would have learned about productivity tips earlier. I wish that I'd learned more about the Pomodoro method and the Ivy Lee method sooner. Productivity was something that I got into and started researching more on YouTube and on Instagram around the time that I had started doing my YouTube channel. So that was at the beginning of, that was towards the end of my 3rd year. I lose track. But it was kind of that last 2 years, year and a half of my PhD, and that was just too late to be learning some of these productivity lessons. So if you are still in the beginning of your PhD, if you are still like year 1, year 2, although if you're year 3, 4, 5, whatever, it's never too late. But if you're at the beginning, do a deep dive into productivity on YouTube and Instagram. I've done some blog posts and some YouTube videos on things that I've learned. I think some of those are due for a refresh and an update, but it's really, really important that you learn as soon as possible how to work smarter, not harder, because it will help save your sanity and give you a bit more time. Mistake or lesson number 4, Scrivener. I've talked about this before. I've done a whole video on how I set up my Scrivener binder. For those who aren't familiar, Scrivener is a word processing program that is so much better than Word or Pages or anything else you could use. I find that it works better for drafting. I still had to edit everything in Word, but for my dissertation, I still found that Scrivener was worth its weight in gold just for the organizing and drafting stage. Like, I didn't feel like I had wasted money because at the end of it all, I was still editing everything in Word. It was worth it. I wish I'd had Scrivener sooner because I think it would have helped so much with all of my seminar papers, conference papers. It would have saved my sanity having Scrivener much earlier. So I feel like Scrivener is something that you don't hear about until you start getting towards your dissertation, and then other people who wrote their dissertation are like, OMG, get Scrivener. Wish someone had told me about it sooner. I wish I'd looked into it sooner. So, Scrivener. Number 5, I think we're up to. I wish I had known my program rules and not been blindsided by some of them late in the game. The one that I was most particularly blindsided by was I didn't realize that if you didn't pass your portfolio review, you were kicked out of the program. I passed mine and it was fine, but I did not take the portfolio seriously enough. I was focusing more on my comp exam, and so I just wasn't doing anything with my 2 portfolio papers. So it wasn't until I thought, I'm done, I'm ready to submit my portfolio and take my comp exam, that my advisor was like, I just don't know if that one paper is going to pass, and I really don't want to tell you to advance towards submission until we're sure that it will pass. And it was like, well, what happens if I don't pass? And that's when I found out. And there was this whole thing in my program where it feels like there are things that we weren't told at the very beginning because the administrators thought that, well, these are things that their chairs will tell them when they get further down the road. But then you get further down the road and our chairs don't tell us these things because they thought we learned about them on day 1. So ask all the questions. Ask if there are anything that, any steps where you could get kicked out or not advance. Ask what is the penalty for not accomplishing things by a certain time. What happens if you're in a program that's designed for 5 years and you get to your 5th year and you are not done? Like, ask all the questions. Know what the rules are, know what the deadlines are, understand the difference between deadlines for your department and deadlines for the graduate college and any other kind of higher up governing board. So my department was often very flexible on things, but the grad college wasn't. And so if the grad college said this is a deadline, you really needed to stick to that. So know what all of those rules are, know what all of those deadlines are, ask a million questions from the beginning, write everything down. As soon as you sit down with your chair, once you pick your chair, make sure you're getting all of that figured out. Ask questions of your chair that you already asked from the department, just to make sure that all the answers are lining up. Get all of that cleared up as soon as you can. If anything starts sounding weird or off, start asking those questions again. Get that clarification. Don't just assume that you will work it out later. I haven't heard of any horror stories. I ran into some things where there were deadlines that I missed with the graduate college, and the person in our department that is just a goddess and a magician sorted everything out, but like not everyone has a Sheila in their department and that's her name, and like we all talk about what an amazing person Sheila is. Not everyone has a Sheila in their department. Sometimes you're stuck with an administrator who doesn't care and isn't going to bend over backwards to help you. So figure all of that out and just make sure that you have as many of those answers as possible. I think we're up to number 6, but I've lost track. I should have numbered these on my notes. I wish I'd gotten into the hashtag PhD Life community sooner. I think it was existing at the time that I started. I feel like it is older than I have been aware of it. But oh my God, when I started getting more active on Instagram, I started using the hashtag, and I also was using it a lot more once I started doing YouTube and stuff as a way to kind of market and promote my videos on my other socials. I have met so many amazing people and amazing friends through that hashtag and other related hashtags, and it helped me find people who were going through similar experiences, having similar struggles, and it just helped me feel so much less alone. So I really wish that I'd found that sooner. I feel like it would have been so helpful to have that and to have that connection and have that sense of community. Obviously, you want to create a community with the students and the classmates that you have in your program, but you also want to have a broader community. Online, I found, was really helpful for finding people who did more of the research that I do. I was kind of the only person in my department studying material culture, other than my chair, who's like a queen of material culture and material rhetoric. But like of the other grad students, I was really the only one doing material culture. I was definitely the only one doing fashion rhetoric, fashion studies. So online helped me connect with other material culture scholars, other visual rhetoric scholars, other fashion studies scholars, and just find new resources and that sort of thing, hear about conferences and publications that were a little bit more relevant to me. So yeah, if you are not doing much online, if you don't have like a Twitter for yourself, like an academic Twitter, if you aren't on Instagram, you obviously don't have to be on every platform, but find one and get active in that hashtag. Even if you're just lurking and following, it helps. It made such a difference. Number 7, I think we're up to. I wish I'd connected with colleagues sooner and stayed in touch during my last year. I kind of vanished during the dissertation stage. I relied a lot more heavily on my online community during the last year and a half of my dissertation and my comp exam. I was primarily teaching online. I wasn't doing coursework anymore, so I just wasn't on campus on a regular basis. I wish that I had reached out and asked people to meet up for coffee a little bit more and things like that. It's really important not to isolate yourself during any stage of your PhD, but especially not during your dissertation stage. And it really does help to be connecting with other graduate students who know what you're dealing with and know what you're going through. I've always had a great relationship with my family and my non-grad school friends, but there's something about the dissertation stage that it just feels like nobody understands. Nobody knows what you're dealing with, but you do have grad school colleagues who do, and so keep in touch with them. Obviously, you don't have to do something every single day. That's not really possible, but just like reaching out every other week, meeting up once a month, really important. Number 8, I wish I'd admitted that I didn't know something rather than trying to figure it out all by myself. I think we have this tendency of not wanting to admit that we don't know what someone means when they give you notes or something. Like, I really didn't mean, for so long I thought that when my advisor was saying you need to theorize this more, I thought she meant I needed to find more scholars saying what I was trying to say. What she really meant was I needed to be a scholar and make up my own arguments and make up my own, do my own theorizing, say, this is what I mean by all of this. I think sometimes our advisors use language that they've been using for decades, and so they don't realize that it might not come across as clear. Don't be afraid to say, can you explain to me what you mean by that? Or can you tell me how I can do what you're wanting me to do. And it wasn't until very late in the dissertation stage that I finally realized what my advisor meant about needing to theorize more. And once I did, the feedback I got from her on my drafts completely changed. It went from theorize more, push this further, to yes, thumbs up, this is great. I wish I'd asked about that sooner. So, and then there's so many other little examples of that, but like, we're so convinced by imposter syndrome that we don't know what we're talking about, and we don't know what we're doing, and if we admit that, we're gonna look like an idiot and they're gonna kick us out. That's not gonna happen. If you have a question, at least find someone who you think you can trust. You know, I get that not everyone has a really great advisor or a good committee. Some people feel like their professors are a little bit out to get them, and in some cases that sadly is kind of true. But almost all of you watching this will have at least one person in your department, whether it's another professor who's maybe not on your committee or a friend who's further along in the program, who you can ask some of these questions that you think are probably like grad student 101, everyone should know this, or rhetoric field, 101, like every rhetoric student should know this. I struggled with that a lot because I did not have a background in rhetoric. So during that second master's degree that I did, it was really hard to know, where should I admit that I don't know something, and where should I go look this answer up on my own because I should have known this after an undergraduate degree. Then my last mistake and thing that I wish I'd done, I wish I'd enjoyed it more. This is going to sound a bit odd, but 1 year out from my PhD, I kind of miss it. Is that crazy? I miss coursework. I miss sitting in graduate seminars and talking about, what we'd read. I miss working on my dissertation. I miss reading for my comp exam. I wish, now that I know that I've passed everything, I passed all my classes, I got A's on most of my seminar papers, I, did well at the conferences that I presented at, I passed all of my exams, even though I thought I blew my comp exam, still passed it, passed my dissertation, passed my defense. Now that I know I successfully completed everything, I wish I could go back to the beginning and do it all over again, knowing that I would pass and just enjoy it. If you've ever seen the movie About Time, it's kind of that lesson in that film. I wish I had that ability. If you haven't watched that film, go watch it. But yeah, I wish I'd enjoyed it more. So if you're still in it, I know it's hard, I know it's stressful, I know you're tearing your hair out and you're grinding your teeth and you're making yourself sick. You will get through it, you will finish, and when you do, I think you're gonna be like me and you're gonna look back and wish that you had enjoyed it a bit more, not made yourself as sick, and just really, you will never have those years back. You will never have the ability to really indulge in research the way that you do as a grad student. Yes, we are stressed. Yes, we are overworked in a lot of ways, but it doesn't get any easier after you graduate, especially if you end up in a job like I did where I'm an instructor and I'm teaching a 5-5 load. I work harder now than I ever did as a grad student, which is crazy because I worked really hard as a grad student. But yeah, enjoy it more. So now, so that we don't end, I don't think any of these have really been downers. I hope they've been helpful, but now ending on the things that I'm glad I did, and I hope that some of you might be able to do some of these. Study abroad. It is never too late. I thought I totally missed the boat because I didn't study abroad as an undergrad. As an undergrad, I wasn't brave enough. As a grad student, I'd started traveling by myself and was really enjoying it and started looking for study abroad options that I could do. Thankfully, I found one. There's a few programs at my university that will accept graduate students. There are two that work really well for English majors. So one of them was a study abroad program that was 5 weeks in Oxford, and you got 6 credits. They counted as 2 of my interdisciplinary credits, so they did count towards the overall credits I had to accrue for my degree. If you really want to do study abroad, there is probably a program that you can do. Find a way to make it happen. You won't regret it. If it's something that you feel like you wished you'd done as an undergrad, if it's something you want to do, make it happen. It was totally, totally worth it. I've never talked about my study abroad. I mean, I've mentioned it here and there, but if you want me to do a video on doing study abroad as a grad student, let me know. Other things I'm glad I did, I kind of mentioned this in the mistakes. Even though I did it late, I'm glad I still connected with people online. I'm glad I formed this online community between my YouTube, my Instagram, Twitter, etc., my blog. It's really, really important. I'm glad that I took a range of courses. Again, most people, like the classes I took with the study abroad were not directly connected to my research. I took some classes in my first year of my master's degree that also weren't really connected to my research or the research I would end up doing. But I'm glad I did them because it gave me a broader kind of coverage of the field of English studies. I took a couple classes that were technically literature, and I'm a rec comp person, but I still value those classes. I made friends in those classes, and it was still worth it. So if your program makes you take classes, which most American PhD programs do, and you're given a map of like, we needed X number of credits of rhetoric, X number of linguistics at the time, that changed, sore subject, X number of interdisciplinary. Like, if you have to do interdisciplinary, run with that. Take all kinds of classes that just seem even just tangentially connected to your degree. I'm glad I applied to conferences and publications even when I thought I didn't stand a chance. My first chapter publication in an edited collection in a book, I applied on a whim. I submitted the abstract and my bio on a complete whim. It just happened to totally perfectly match what my master's thesis had been. It was a book on Bond girls from the James Bond films. I had just written a thesis on costume design and Bond girls. So I figured, what the heck? I can submit it. It's not going to take any extra time and effort on my part. So if I don't get accepted, it'll be fine. But then I got accepted, and I was going into my PhD, starting my PhD with my first publication acceptance. So give things a try, even when you think you don't stand a chance, because you never know. I'm glad I asked for help from my mentors and my professors, but there were so many times where I was just hitting a wall with either a seminar paper or my comp exam, step prep, whatever, and I asked, eventually. Sometimes it took me longer to ask the question than I wish it would have, but eventually I asked the questions and it always helped. So I'm really glad that I did finally ask those questions and get the help that I needed. And then I'm kind of going back to the last thing on the mistakes I made. I wished I'd enjoyed it more. I'm glad that I enjoyed it when I could. There were moments that I did enjoy it. I just wished I'd let myself enjoy it a little bit more. So this video has gotten long, and it's Sunday and my mom is like outside waiting for me so we can go to Zinc. So I'm gonna go have lunch, but I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. I would really appreciate that, and that does help with like my channel being found by new people. Say hi in the comments. Let me know what some of your mistakes that you are learning from, or things that you are glad that you are doing or did during your PhD, so that others can learn from that. And again, as I said, if you have any questions about grad school, I'm going to be doing a Q&A soon, so if you have questions about my experiences, or if you have any requests for grad school related videos that you would like me to do in the future, please put those in the comments. And yeah, I will see you all soon in the next video. Thank you very much for watching this one. Bye-bye.